You know a little GDScript, but what about writing better GDScript? Let's talk about static typing in Godot. GDScript is a gradually typed language. That means you don't need to declare static types for everything from the start. Godot game will run either way. It just doesn't complain, but maybe it should. If I've lost you here, static typing is the difference between this and this. Without static types, we just put whatever types we want in variables and let Godot do the extra work to guess what they're supposed to be. And we also let your teammates do the extra work and the future you do the extra work to guess what the variables are supposed to be. Now, what I'm not saying is that Godot should make static types mandatory. It being not mandatory makes the language a lot more approachable with less conceptual overhead for brand new programmers and programmers coming from dynamically typed languages like JavaScript and Python. However, I strongly believe that any non-trivial, fairly large project is going to benefit a lot from static types. So let's type everything, all the things. We'll give everything types, static types, like this. It's actually pretty simple in concept. All you have to do is go over every single var, const, func, and arg in your whole Godot program and give it a type. That's all. But that's more work, you might say. Typing everything is more typing. Yeah, it's a little bit more work, but the benefits are several, I guess. 1, you and your team will have an easier time reading, understanding, and reasoning about code when you know exactly what type is expected for every argument, variable, and function return. I'd argue that for most code, using clear descriptive function and variable names plus static types is sufficiently clear documentation. You don't have to write a single comment, usually. This is even important for solos like me who have really bad memories, like me. I want to stress this point because I think code readability, both on a micro level, which is reading a function or a line, and on a macro level, which is grokking an entire system, are most of the time what separates great code from shitty code. In some circumstances, we make a trade-off to sacrifice some readability for some performance, but usually, most of the time, that's not worth doing, and the thing that is the most important about code is being able to read and maintain it. 2, you'll catch more bugs before the game even builds. When I made up my mind to statically type a recent project, I uncovered and fixed 2 major bugs and a bunch of little ones before they even became problems. 3, you'll have better performance and faster code. Slightly. Statically typed code gives you a small boost in performance since it doesn't have to run type inference in the moment. As always, getting a sub 1 millisecond improvement on some random function that runs once on load is probably not worth your time, ever. But anything invoked from your process function or in large loops in performance critical areas might be pretty noticeable. 4, you're going to get better warnings going forward to help you and your team maintain your game. 5, you'll also get better autocomplete since Godot knows exactly what kind of thing you might be adding. 6, it's more consistent too, because some GDScript features require type annotations anyways, like export vars, so it looks nice if everything has it too. I'm not going to get into the fine points of Godot's types or the GDScript type system, but if you're at all familiar with adding annotations for export vars like int, string, float, and array, you should be able to follow this. Basically, every single piece of data, from the smallest fundamentals to complicated Godot nodes to your own custom classes, are represented by types, like int, audio stream player, or myCoolScript. And you can declare your own class names with the class name declaration. A type defines all the properties and functions a piece of data can have or do, and what other functions can also take it in as an argument and return it as a variable. They are often, but not always, represented by a single script file, and types usually have a parent type. Think of this as something like type human is also of parent type mammal. Every human is a mammal. When a human is reading this, they don't have to guess what this var is. They know that it is a string and it can do things like capitalize or split. And when you're writing this, your IDE doesn't have to guess what this is. It can use static analysis to restrict you from doing dangerous or stupid things and give you little type hints. And when your code is running, Godot doesn't have to spend valuable microseconds checking for the type of a thing before it does something with it. It's just better. So how can I get started with this? It's actually pretty easy. You don't actually have to do it all at once. Untyped and inferred declarations can live next to statically typed code just fine. It's okay to migrate over the course of days or weeks. However, I think it's a best practice just to be consistent and type it all. So let's do this. Put aside some time commensurate to the size of your project and communicate your intentions to your team. And if your team is just yourself, I guess take a quiet moment to reflect and ask yourself, what have you done? You're about to trigger a lot of warning noise, and you'll be doing a ton of small edits on a lot of files, so there is the potential for a lot of git merge conflicts, etc. It's best to not leave this boiling on the back burner for too long. Let's make a fresh commit or branch in your version control software of choice, which you should be using. If you aren't using version control yet, you should be, and get on it now. Stop watching this video. I am linking one where I will go over that for you. It's really easy and it will save your life. I swear. Finally, go to Project Settings, Debug, GDScript. We're going to find untyped declarations, and we're going to set that to warn. While we're here, let's also set inferred declaration to warn. This is optional, but it prevents us from declaring variables with this : equals syntax. It's fine to do this. It will still give you the performance boost, but I think it is much clearer to use the explicit static types. Totally up to you though. It's still better to use : equals than just plain equals with no typing. Now, rebuild your project and watch those warnings pour in. Oof. Now we can go through each of these and start untangling, typing, etc. File by file. Usually this is as simple as adding some obvious return types and variable types, but you are almost certain to hit a few little roadblocks. Usually we can see what types a Godot function or variable or anything you've already typed has just by hovering over it in your IDE or in Godot itself. Just look for the values provided for args and returns here and add them in. It's just that easy. Note you might need to introduce some of your classes with the class name declaration so that you can use that class as a type. I can't actually think of a reason why this would come up while you're converting to static typing, because you'd need to have this already to use them as utilities or to generate resources with them. But it could conceivably happen. Just keep in mind that this will clash in the global namespace with things like your autoloaded singletons, so they'll have to have a different name than the name you gave your autoloads. GDScript lets us extend classes too. When we say class A extends class B, we are saying that class A has all the properties of class B, and then whatever class A has too. It can be used to represent more specific versions of a class. For instance, in our cooking game, maybe we have a vegetable class, and we can extend it with specific versions of that class, like celery and tomato. And yes, tomatoes are a vegetable. There's a Supreme Court decision from the late 19th century saying that they should be treated as such for customs. And also, fruit is a botanical term. That's what we're using it for when we're saying tomato is a fruit. In culinary terms, it's a vegetable. And I will die on this hill, and this will become a problem shortly. So celery and tomato can both have their own fields, but most importantly, they can also overwrite functions from vegetable. If we never want vegetable to ever be instantiated on its own and only created as a child class like celery or tomato or, God forbid, a turnip, we can mark this as abstract. This is powerful because now we can pass in vegetable to functions that don't care about what actual class something has. Imagine a function like make soup that takes in an array of vegetables. We can do that now. But what if after getting our vegetables in our make soup, we start caring about what they are specifically? Then we have to typecast or use duck typing or some other dark magic. So typecasting can be dangerous, so proceed with caution. Our two main keywords for dealing with this are is and as. We can ask if a variable is something to check if it has that class or that parent class up to any level of hierarchy. We can use as to change how we're treating some data. So we can change an item that is a tomato into a vegetable. And we can change that same vegetable back into a tomato. But we cannot change a celery into a tomato, or we can't change a celery into a vegetable into a tomato, because it isn't that data. We're just choosing how to treat it in the system. If we try to cast something that doesn't belong in a certain data type as a data type, it should make that variable null. So always check with an is before you cast with as, or check for null. So there are lots of reasons why complex type hierarchies can cause headaches. In our above example, we have a class called tomato, and any right-minded individual knows that a tomato is a type of vegetable in the kitchen. But what if we're making a game that's about farming and cooking? And in that case, we might care about the botanical definition of a tomato. They are seed-bearing organs of flowering plants. That is to say, they are fruits. Can a tomato be both a veg and a fruit? Well, in our class system, we can't actually have multiple inheritance. That would probably cause chaos. Most programming languages don't allow this at all. And we probably can't have vegetable inherit from fruit or fruit inherit from vegetable. It just doesn't really make sense because a lot of things are one and not the other. So what do we do? So in general, I think trying to model content relationships like this using inheritance is a huge trap. And we should probably think about modeling complicated data relationships using the composition pattern rather than inheritance. This way we could have some sort of generic object that can hold a set of different classes that hold data and functions for various domains. We aren't going to do this here, but I will probably cover this in the future. But in this case, we could have some sort of object that has fruit data, vegetable data, etc. And a tomato could have both of those. Other languages have interfaces, which let us have little contracts for what a class can do. And a class can have as many interfaces as you want, but GDScript does not have these yet. I've been asking them to do it for a while, but nothing yet. So GDScript's sort of alternative to interfaces is duck typing. And basically we can just check if an object has a function with the same name, and then if it does, we can call it. This can be hard to maintain for large projects for a few reasons. For one, a function with the same name doesn't necessarily promise a correct return type, or that the function is meant for the same thing. Still, it's an option to avoid typecasting if we really only want to call a function. Whoa, one sec. Hello. If you haven't subscribed to me yet and you're finding this useful, please do. Okay, thanks. I love you. Goodbye. You might find that you've got a function that returns two different types of things, or a variable that is truly varying. Imagine this code for some implementation of chess. Pieces have a location, which is a vector 2i that refers to their position on the board. But what does that location mean when the piece is taken? Right now I'm returning null, but that's not really a valid cast for vector 2i, right? So in these cases, you have a few options. One, and this is preferred, this is probably bad code, or a code smell, we might say. You should probably refactor it so that the variable can always use the same type. Maybe always check if the piece is taken before you use it. Two, nullable types can be null. That covers most objects, like complex things. But for non-nullable types like vectors and integers, you have to be a bit more creative. If a function has an invalid value, returning vector 3, 0 might seem falsy, but it's not a great solution because vector 3, 0 is often a totally valid value, right? Like that's the origin, and it's probably one of your most common values. So depending on your use case, you could do something like return vector 3 infinity or negative infinity, or I often will use vector 2i min or max, and then just check for that outside and run that. Again, this isn't great, and I think I would prefer to make sure that we are separating out the check for if the piece is on the board, but this is a way you can do it. 3, use a dictionary or a custom object to return needed values in separate fields. This is pretty simple. It adds a little more infrastructure, but should work. And 4, and this can be a bit dangerous, you could change type to return something more general. like a variant, and then you could do typecasting for that. One thing that is likely to get confusing is the variant class. The Godot docs call variant the most important data type in Godot, and this kind of makes sense. Variant is a wrapper class that provides a consistent interface for containing and working with most common data types like int, float, string, arrays, dictionaries. These can all be contained by and treated as a variant. Anything that is an object or derived from object can't. This is generally done automatically by Godot by casting something as a variant or passing it as a variant arg. The base variant type offers stuff like hashing and serialization and tons of other neat features that let it operate really smoothly on various data types within the Godot ecosystem. Most of the time, you don't actually need to think about it at all. When a Godot feature doesn't need to deal with the actual data, but just to pass it around, it often treats that data as a variant. You'll often see this in serialization and deserialization code, like this here, for a high score system that reads files from a JSON file on disk. And you can totally legally just type this as a variant for now, but if you know it's going to probably be an array of dictionaries, well, we should probably check and do a conversion. And for safety, we might want to test the variant types using an is check. So if my variable is string, do something with my variable, else do something else or do nothing. This of course relies on us knowing what kind of data is going to be there, so you'll have to use some good judgment there. I find that the way Godot deals with typing for collections is a bit weak. You can easily type an array of some object or a dictionary that maps from a single type key to a single type value, but you can't yet type nested arrays, like an array of ints, or collections with variable types. In this case, dictionary and array types are usable, but you'll need to do some custom type checking or duck typing to make it work. Collections are also kind of a hassle to type if you're using functional programming methods like map and filter, which doesn't actually return an array of your type, but rather just an array. And you've got to do something like this or this to put them in their place. I find this quite frustrating, actually. Godot offers some really basic global scope math methods that you might know, like round and seal. These are not safe to be used with static typing. Instead, use the statically typed versions. So for floor, please use floor I to return integers, or floor F, florf, to return floats. And if you're operating on a vector type, you can use vector versions like vector2.floor. And this pattern generally applies to other similar math operations like seal, round, sign, clamp, abs, and with some wrinkles, lerp. Have a look on the Godot docs to see the full details of this. And if you are still having trouble getting something typed, maybe it's some really nasty algorithm your teammate wrote, you can just silence warnings for a line or a file using an annotation like this. You might want to do this if you're turning on type warnings and want to deal with it on a per file basis without getting overwhelmed by errors. And maybe you've downloaded a Godot package from the asset lib that contains a bunch of code that isn't properly typed. That's going to trigger a bunch of alarms and oof. Generally, if you're not going to be editing the packages, which you probably shouldn't, I'd recommend just silencing all the warnings or bothering the author until they type their damn stuff. But most of those authors are volunteers and open source contributors, so I probably would just not bother them because we're nice people. You've gone through your warnings and fixed everything. You've introduced inheritance judiciously, and you are seeing those type errors melt away. If you're feeling really confident about your situation, you can revisit the project settings and set it to untyped def error so that you can't even build without proper static typing. That's up to you. I think it's a bit extreme. At any rate, your code will run faster and be easier to reason about. And yes, it can take a bit of grunt work to get to this point and fix up a big project, but I think it's worth it. Do you have any questions about Godot architecture? Do you have any stories from the trenches of game dev? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you like this video and want any more, please subscribe to me. Goodbye.